Hey everybody, and welcome to week 13. This week we are going to take some time to look at a period of history that was really protracted. And we are not going to actually have an opportunity to get through the entirety of it because, as I mentioned, it's very protracted. But the subject that we're going to get into today and this week is the Cold War. Now, the Cold War really begins in 1945, right as World War II comes to an end. The relationship between the United States and then at that time the Soviet Union, it becomes very icy. And this Cold War will continue on essentially until around 1991 when the Soviet Union eventually collapses. Okay, now during this time between 45 and 91, there were moments when the Cold War got very hot. Okay, where the tensions were very tight, for example, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And there was other times when the United States and the Soviet Union experienced what we called détente, a period of cooling where those tensions sort of were not as tight, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to focus on the years from 1945 to 1975. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to define what the American foreign policy was. And the foreign policy that the United States had was something called containment. We can't eradicate communism because it's an ideology, but we can try to contain it and keep it from spreading. And then we're going to look at various ways in which the United States sought not only to contain communism abroad, but also within the United States as well. Indeed, one of the things that happens is there's so much fear and anxiety about a communist takeover that a communist witch hunt spearheaded by a senator by the name of McCarthy begins to develop within the United States. And so lots of different topics that we're going to be looking at this week, lots of different events. We'll talk about the space race, we'll talk about the nuclear armament race, and the policy of containment generally, okay? But just understand that by the time we get through with this week, that's not necessarily an indication that the Cold War had ended. It's just chronologically there's other things that we need to address before we actually get to the end of the Cold War, okay? And I'll define why we call it a Cold War in the lecture, and I will also explain why, to a degree, the term itself is not actually accurate if we consider the Cold War to be a conflict that was not just between the United States and the Soviet Union, but between other communist nations as well. So that's what we are going to be looking at this week. And as far as assignments go, again, the only one that's coming up and pending would be that second PowerPoint assignment. So be thinking about the topics that you might like to do. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be one that we've talked about in class. If you have something that you would really like to do that's, you know, outside of the lectures we've done, please let me know and we'll consider it, seriously consider it. So just be aware that that's coming up, and the due date for that is, of course, stated in the syllabus and on Canvas. Otherwise, if you have questions or comments, get back to me, and I will try and email you back as soon as possible. Otherwise, go in peace, be warm and filled, may the force be with you, live long and prosper, and may the odds forever be in your favor. Have a great week, guys.